pick because, what St. Louis are we going to see? What New England are we going to see? It's really, really hard to tell because both these teams have looked like they're the absolute worst around, and then the next week they'll look unbeatable. Now, St. Louis has looked very good since getting rid of Scott Linehan and bringing in Hurricane Hazlitt to be the head coach. But do you start anybody against a New England team that looked really tough last week, Monday Night Football, at home against Denver? So do you start anyone from St. Louis? Well, if it's me, I start Steven Jackson. And I know there's been some concerns about his thigh. He sat out of practice today. But from what I understand, that's just a precaution. They don't think that he will be missing the game this weekend. Steven Jackson should be good to start this weekend, and no problems there. The only other guy I might plug in on St. Louis, and surely if you were rolling with Mark Bulger as your quarterback, you've moved on by now. But the only other guy I start off St. Louis possibly is Donnie Avery, rookie receiver. Donnie Avery, he's a speed guy. Right, he gets down the field fast. And this week at New England, I think Donnie Avery might be an okay start. Torrey Holt is losing his luster very, very fast. There's something wrong with St. Louis, but Steven Jackson, still a good start. Donnie Avery may be a sleeper pick. At New England, now here's the thing. Now this matters, like who's going to show up. Good St. Louis or bad St. Louis? Bad St. Louis, then I like Matt Castle, Randy Moss, Wes Welker, who will be even running the ball now. Sammy Morris went down. Kevin Falk. I like these guys, but if good St. Louis shows up, then that's bad advice. So it's really tough telling. If it's me, I like Moss and Welker. You may be rolling with Matt Castle, but hopefully you're doing better than that. Hopefully you didn't get put in such a situation where you have to have Matt Castle as your starting quarterback. All right, moving on. Tampa Bay at Dallas. Dallas is bad. Tony Romo's not playing again. Brad Johnson will be starting. Marion Barber's always a good play, but that Tampa Bay defense is punishing. He may not be a good play this week. T.O., disappointing. Jason Witten may be the only guy worth plugging in from Dallas. Even though if you have T.O. or you have Marion Barber, it's not like you're going to bench them. So put them out there. Hopefully something good happens. Just don't expect too much, especially against Tampa Bay. However, though, with Tampa Bay, I kind of like Jeff Garcia. If you got a quarterback on a bye, Jeff Garcia is your backup. You did a good job picking him up for this week because that Dallas secondary is depleted and bad anyway. So Jeff Garcia, who just went over 300 yards last week, is going to have another nice week, I believe, against Dallas. And I don't know if Joey Galloway's back or what's going on there, but check out the receivers. If you need a flex spot, a second receiver, you may have somebody in Tampa Bay you can plug in. Also, tight end Alex Smith is looking like a pretty good option as far as tight ends go this year because tight end play has been pretty inconsistent. My daughter's crying back there a little bit. Can you guys hear that? I have to rush through the rest of this. Go ahead and plug in Ernest Graham, too. Not a bad play. Try to stay away from work done, though. He's not the number one. I know a few games ago he was the number one. Ernest Graham was the fullback, but that was a one-time only situation. Ernest Graham is the main halfback, Tampa Bay. He's the one worth starting. Next game, Washington at Detroit. Jason Campbell should have a nice day. Santana Moss should keep his streak going. Chris Cooley's been disappointing this season, but like I said earlier, most tight ends have been. Clinton Portis, big day from Clinton Portis. On the Detroit side of the ball, Calvin Johnson had his most yardage in his career last week with Roy Williams gone for the first time, but it was only on 2 catches, and one of them was a 96-yard score. So, Calvin Johnson, though, you have to plug him in. If he's on your team, he's scoring too many points this season. He's just finding a way to score points. So plug in Calvin Johnson if you have him. No other Detroit Lions are worth a start. Or worth something else. Ooh, man, she's getting mad. Just a few more, honey. Cleveland at Jacksonville. Don't buy into the Cleveland from 2 games ago. I said if you listen to Fantasy Football 101, which I do Saturdays with my good friend Adam Stark, Nick Orelli, Mark Graham, we do a good show on Sports Radio 1450 or sportsradio1450.com if you want to listen to online. But I told a caller who called in asking about Derek Anderson if he should start him. I said, don't buy in to that one-game fluke. They caught the Giants sleeping. This is not the real Cleveland. They have tough matchups the rest of the season, and they're not snapping out of any funk anytime soon. And not this week at Jacksonville. No way. I think Kellen Winslow may be coming back, so he's a worthwhile start. Braylon Edwards will be okay, but I don't expect huge numbers from him either. And Cleveland, like I said, don't buy in. Jamal Lewis is a super bust this year. And on Jacksonville's side of the ball, David Garrett's a suitable start. He doesn't put up big numbers, but still, he's suitable. All right, running back wise, this is what I understand. Fred Taylor has 2 concussions this season. He's going to be playing, but he's wearing a special concussion-proof helmet, and they're going to want to lighten his load a little bit. So Maurice Jones-Drew is becoming the main. Listen, I'm chuckling because I just traded Jones-Drew away, and right after I do that, Fred Taylor goes down with a head injury, and now I really wish I had Jones-Drew back, especially this week because Cleveland lets people run all over them, and Jones-Drew should have a really, really, really nice week. So definitely start him for sure and be happy that you have him. The New York Giants at Pittsburgh. Boy, this is a tough one. This is a really tough one. Eli Manning hasn't really looked that sharp this season. Never really has, with the exception of the last few games last year. All right, never really has looked that sharp. He didn't make many mistakes last week as far as turning the ball over, but he only completed about 50% of his passes, went under 200 yards, only 1 touchdown. And now this week, Pittsburgh has the number 1 ranked pass D in the league. So, Eli Manning, probably not the best start. Plaxico Burress, you always have to plug in if you have him, even though he's got a small injury in his finger. Honey. But he should be okay. Brandon Jacobs is proven to be a worthwhile start every week. But like I said, this Pittsburgh defense is punishing. Expect some aspect of that Giants offense to be shut all the way down. So, but they're all must starts. So it's kind of a tough balancing act there. On the other side of the ball, though, Pittsburgh, I think Willie Parker might try to come back this week, but I'm not sure how that's going to turn out. So keep a close eye on that if you're a Willie Parker owner. Hopefully you have Noeldi Moore to back him up just in case. Ben Roethlisberger, I really like Big Ben. If you have him, he's probably your starter, so keep him in. Who else do we have there? Santonio Holmes, Heath Miller. These guys are all right. You're probably not going to sit Santonio on the bench too much, no matter who they're playing. Even though this is a tough matchup against the Giants, you plug your guys in. That's the key in fantasy football. Roll with your starters, man. Don't go digging too deep around your bench and plug a guy like Roethlisberger on the bench so you can start Matt Castle against St. Louis. You know what I mean? All right. I gotta get going. Seattle at San Francisco. Seattle's brutal, awful, bad, terrible. San Francisco's not much better. So who do you start? From Seattle, maybe Julius Jones, but that's it. With Hasselbeck out, I don't like anybody else on Seattle. And at San Francisco, I really like some guys. I like O'Sullivan, and I like Frank Gore. So those are 2 guys probably worth plugging in. At Frank Gore, you always have in. O'Sullivan should have a decent week if you're into that kind of thing. Monday night game. Oh, we got to do Cincinnati-Houston. You know what? Houston's got a weak defense. Cincinnati has Ryan Fitzpatrick throwing the ball. Not too impressive. But I think that this is a good week to plug in Houshmandzadeh or Ocho Cinco. These guys are all right. The Houston side of the ball, I like everybody. I like Matt Schaub, Steve Slayton, Andre Johnson, and tight end Owen Daniels, all quite a bit. So plug all those guys in. They're going to have a big week. Monday night game.